All right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome back to the Masterful Conversations podcast, episode 3, where we learn about leadership. Yes, sir. Number 3, where we learn about leadership from the stories of men who have served or are currently serving in the seat of Worshipful Master in a regular lodge of Free and Accepted Masons. I am Brother Matthew Wagstaff, past master of Eureka Lodge number 36 in Rochester, New York, along with Brother Mark Alexander, past master of Sons of Kings Lodge number 123 in Brooklyn, New York. We both hail from the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge in the state of New York, where presiding currently is Most Worshipful Gregory Robeson Smith Jr., serving as our Grand Master. And so before we go any further, we want to make sure that we provide a quick disclaimer before we get moving.
The information shared on our show is intended for educational and entertainment purposes. The view and opinions expressed do not represent any Masonic Lodge or Grand Lodge. Make sure you do your own research and look up things in your own jurisdiction.
Absolutely. Now, the fact that we actually have somebody from the Grand Lodge here, it still doesn't mean that we represent the Grand Lodge.
We definitely don't.
So we just want to make sure we're clear.
Yeah. Grand Master speaks for the Grand Lodge.
Amen.
Absolutely.
So mote it be. So mote it be. So mote it be. So, Brother Alexander.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Tonight we have the esteemed pleasure to have with us past Master Sandino Sanchez, who currently serves as the Grand Secretary for the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge in the state of New York. Of course, that makes him right worshipful, but we're past masters here, so all past masters. He's a past master of the U, Adelphic Union 14. I'm not going to do that. I can't do that.
I would. I've done it before.
Yeah, I know. For Adelphic Union 14. Yeah, there it is. He served 40 years of 2014 to 2015. And he also, for a little while, was in a lodge under dispensation in 2016. His current titles are many, and previous titles are many. I'll go with a couple of his current titles. He's on the OES side, District Deputy Grand Patron. He's also, I know he's also on, just got elected as the thrice illustrious master of his Purple House. Previous titles, Commander-in-Chief of King David Consistory number 3. He's a past excellent high priest of Rising Sun, I believe, right? Is it Rising Sun?
Yes,
Rising Sun.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Of course, he's a past patron, past district president. He's a past district deputy grand master, among many other things, and he also receives his 33rd degree. What year was that, Brother Sandino?
Oh man, I'm terrible with time. I think it's 2019.
Yeah,
2019.
2019, something like that. But he got it. He got his 33rd.
With the Basil Sands class.
Oh yeah, it is Basil. Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, Basil Sands class. So welcome, past Master Sandino Sanchez.
Thank you.
Beautiful to have you here, Pastor Master Sanchez. Great to know you for many years now and continue to get to know you. Today, we're going to have some really good conversation about leadership, and I'm hoping that we'll drop some gems. I know we're going to get some gems today from you about leadership and the fact that you serve at so many different levels. So you have like the local level, at the lodge level, the district level, and then at the grand level. Would love to hear about how leadership is either the same or has changed or shifts a little bit as you go through those different levels in the organization. Well, let's just go back in time a little bit. Let's go back to 2014 when you first got into the East at Adelphic Union and became Worshipful Master, and just sort of give us a lay of the land. What was the year like as Worshipful Master in 2014? How large was your lodge? Who was the sitting Grand Master at that time? Any current events that were relevant to share? Let's lay out the context for us a little bit.
So before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about my journey. I have a unique journey in Masonry, and that all has developed my leadership skills throughout the years. So I came into this organization in 1996. At the time, I was young. I was in my 20s. I had 2 kids. And at that time, I wasn't ready for Masonry. And I say that because a lot of people want to join organizations, and sometimes Either the time ain't ready or they're not ready. So in around 20, fast forward from 1996, I did 3 years, served as senior deacon, etc. Did degree work, stepped away for a while. In about 2011 or 2012, I went to a funeral where one of my mentors, John Best, was being funeralized. And there I saw my sponsor, past Master Wayne Francis. And somehow I wasn't expecting to see PM, but I don't believe in coincidences.
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks after that, I saw the young man whose older brother passed away from sickle cell, who was a member of Samson Lodge and who died due to sickle cell. He was like my best friend.
Mm-hmm.
And he died many years ago. And he's the reason why Samson today does their sickle cell fundraising.
Okay. Nice.
So I come across his little brother, right? That I've known since he was a baby. So here I am with this young man. So I asked him, so how you doing? He's in a fraternity uh already. I said, why you doing? Said, oh, by the way, Sandino, I have a petition to join Pelham Lodge in the Bronx. So I was very embarrassed. I said, wait a minute. I thought to myself, I said, wait a minute, I gotta get back in this game because I owe it to my friend to be there for his initiating, pass, and raises. So I called my sponsor, Wayne Francis. Say, Wayne, I need to meet how's the lodge doing? How you doing? And I need to come back. Wayne tells me, listen, you're calling me at the most appropriate time because the lodge needs you. Anybody that knows AUL's history
Mm-hmm.
knows that we had a time where we were almost extinct.
Mm-hmm.
Barely
Mm-hmm.
open. We could barely pay our bills. We had arrears
Mm-hmm.
in per capita. And so I called. All this happened very timely. So I came back to the lodge. I went. I remember that Errol greeted me in the library because at the time, our Worshipful Master was the librarian. He
Mm-hmm.
gave me the grip. What is that? And the rest is history. Somehow my brain caught up quick. I don't believe in coincidence. I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but the fact that that came back
Mm-hmm.
in my brain, I got maybe 85% right,
Mm-hmm.
90% right, but it was accurate enough for me to say, wait a minute, I didn't forget this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So the next is history. The Brooks became worse. Then Wayne Francis became worse. And then Wardali asked me at the time and said, what do you want? I said, no, put me in the back of the line.
Mm-hmm.
Don't make me, just because I have seniority doesn't mean that I'm going to skip y'all. Put me back in the line. So I started as junior deacon and worked my way up to the chairs again. I served as junior deacon under Wayne Francis, my sponsor. I served as senior deacon under Wardali, and I served as senior deacon under Darrell White. And in those 3 years, I reimagined myself. I did the rework. I did. I served on committees. We started our ball for the first time. We did fundraisers. We celebrated our 150. And I say all this to say that leadership, Masonically speaking, leadership requires three things, right? You have to understand light. You have to understand light. You have to be able to impart light. You have to have some knowledge of the ritual and some of the symbolism behind the ritual so that you can be an effective teacher or instructor. You have to understand the business of the lodge because you have to make money. You have to understand your break point even analysis. You have to understand what your overhead is so that you can adjust your dues if necessary, or organize events to generate money. And the third and most important thing, fellowship. Fellowship. You got to learn who your brothers are. If I don't know who you are who your wife is, who your kids are, it's very hard for me to say that you are my brother or understand. So when you're hurting, we hurt. When you're celebrating, we celebrate. And I think those three elements are important. And in order for you to be an effective worshipful master, you have to do degree work. You have to engage in committee work to understand the money and the dealings of the lodge, and you have to understand fellowship. Fellowship for everybody is different. It could be a barbecue, it could be at a bar, it could be in the movie theater, it could be bowling, it could be in a social, in a party. But all those elements is what makes to effective leadership because you learn your brothers, you set expectations, and you manage kind of the how did I say it? How can I say it differently? engagement is what's lacking, I think. And to engage members, you have to meet them in those 3 areas to be effective.
Past Master Sanchez, now you kind of answered the next question at the same time with effective leadership, but you didn't really focus in on your years as Worship Master. So let's try to focus on.
I want to ask too, like just even to add to that point too, those three bullet points around light business and fellowship. I want to see if at all how those things sort of fed into your 2 years.
That's the Adelphic Union way. I know that now, but
yeah.
So we established a blueprint that started with Brooks and was refined by Wayne Francis and Kev, and then the 3 worshipful masters that came after, Darrell White, Gene Allen, and myself. I was the first to engage in the business aspect of it. During my year, we made the most money. We had a profitable year, and then that kind of set the tone. And at the same time, I was able to be successful at establishing the exposure. Because when I became Worshipful Master, we had already 70 members. When Wardali was Worshipful Master and Wayne was Worshipful Master, we only had 30 members. So so they did what they had to do and did what they could do. But when it was my turn, I had twice as many members. So my canvas was wider. So if you look at my stewardship, I would do three events every weekend, travel every month to different places, and kind of expose us to Masonry at large. But to answer your question, I had my best Masonic years was when I was Worshipful Master. For a lot of reasons. One is that my brothers was with me from beginning to end. I didn't have the same group of brothers that traveled with me the first year to the second year because it's a little exhausting to do a lot of stuff and it requires a lot of resources. But I think that I had a lot of support from within the organization, outside the organization, and my family and friends, as well as a formula for success was our relationship with our sister chapter. At that time, both were growing at the same time. So I served in the East with Yenny. At the same time, the chapter was trying to reorganize and re-envision itself. And so we kind of both were successful at the same time in raising our platform and raising our footprint, Masonically speaking. So I had the best 2 years of my life. I only had one moment at the end of my term, and it was the last 30 days. I don't want to talk about it, but outside that, I had the best 23 months of my Masonic career. And the only reason I say that is because what I had to do really hurt me and hurt the person. I did the right thing, but sometimes doing the right thing comes with consequences also.
Yeah, I can imagine. Let's peel the onion back a little bit. So knowing that you had your best 23 months in Masonry while being in the East, for someone that's listening right now, they're junior ward, they're senior ward right now, they aspire to be in the East. Talk a little bit about like some of the factors that went into that. So I can imagine that you must have had a very close relationship with your brothers and the sisters in the chapter. Like how much time were you spending every week, month, whatever, however you want to describe it? Like how much time were you spending cultivating those relationships, or was there another factor that played a heavier role?
So we traveled together. The chapter and the lodge traveled together. So we did events. Everything that would happen on a Friday or Saturday, we did, and and whatever mass or divine service that was happening on Sunday, we did as well. I wasn't as active in the other houses, but I was still very active. I focused all my energy on the lodge and the chapter, and that's all I did. Although I was commander-in-chief, and I was excellent high priest also, but most of my attention was dedicated to the lodge as well as the chapter. We did that intentional. We recruited, we nurtured. I participated. I was a dean, not the dean of instruction, but I participated in all the degree work. Although every Friday we had study class, I passed the baton to the deans, but I still had a role in the life. I'm gonna say something controversial, but I'm gonna say it anyway. So both the classes that I raised still call me my Worshipful Master. Out of respect. They don't do it publicly. They do it privately, but they give me that respect because I made it my business to make sure that I learned these brothers. It wasn't just being tough on them and making them repeat and memorize stuff. I was part of their life somewhat. I supported them in their journey, and we became good friends and brothers when they got a raise to the degree of Master Mason. And another thing that I did is I had a lot of intention to what I did. I published what was going to be discussed on Fridays in study class. I made sure that every month there was a guest speaker on a Masonic topic.
Mm.
I spread it out to different districts to come in and speak on whatever topic of choice they had. I kept the members engaged in that way, and we did a lot of fellowship. If I traveled, we traveled. I never canceled study class. If we had to support something on a Friday, we called it the traveling study class. And the traveling study class sometimes was instruction, and sometimes it's fun and play. But we never used the term cancel study class. We just recreated what study class represented at the time.
So you had consistency, you had consistent participation, you showed consistency, and you had consistent support. I'm curious about how you got that consistent support from the brothers specifically, and even the sisters to a certain extent. Like, how did you get them to say, "Yep, we're going to follow this man"?
The buy-in.
Well, everybody that knows me knows that I'm probably the most consistent brother that you're gonna meet. The same person that comes into your lodge room is the same person that comes home and that goes to work. It's the same person. I made my brothers a priority. Even if the Grand Master was in the room, I said hello to my brothers first. Even if the Grand Senior Warden was in the room, I greeted my brothers first, and I greeted my sisters first, and then I greeted everybody else. I made sure that they understood that they were a priority in my life, and I bring family to the table. In my Masonic years, everybody knows my kids. They're teenagers now. My son is about, my son is about to go to college in September. So not only did I come and was present, so was my family. As a matter of fact, I had a thing that I would tell people: if you can't invite my wife, then don't invite me either. So we did a lot of things together, and that's improved her relationship in the Olive Star. She's also a past matron, and it also improved our relationship, Masonically speaking.
Great.
So the other thing we did is that, I'm not a book reader per se, but one book that I did read was Observing the Craft. And I applied most of those concepts in. I knew we had brothers that were Muslim. I didn't buy pork in my year. I knew that we had brothers with hypertension, blood pressure, had diabetes. I didn't buy fried chicken that year. I included a salad dish in all. It caused me havoc sometimes, but I did those things intentionally. We had a bulletin that we called the Beehive. We included a healthy menu in there, healthy menu options, recipes that they could prepare food at home, and there was always a prayer and a theme to it, kind of giving people a more holistic approach to Masonry. We also incorporated prostate health awareness and education. Because in my mastership, I checked my prostate for the first time. Not me. The doctor checked. I got my prostate checked for the first time in 2014. And so all of our brothers did with Calvin Martin, with the local clinic that he was working. And as a matter of fact, I think they wrote us a check. Because we had about 30, 40 brothers in that session. I think the clinic wrote us a $500 check.
So it seems that your leadership style was that like a servant leader, and through that servant leadership, your brothers trusted you and bought into what you were trying to do for the lodge itself. Would you agree with that?
Yes. And I also got lucky. Again, like I mentioned earlier, we were a struggling lodge that became a strong lodge, and in my year, it became a mid-sized lodge. So having twice as many brothers than my previous past masters had helped a lot. It helped a lot, having twice as many brothers to be able to call upon if you need something. So now fast forward, now we're 109.
Yeah, I was about to ask that because so 2015 you was about 70. Now 2024 you had 109. Yeah, so that's
109. Yes.
Yeah, it's a big change, big makeup, definitely. Like I said, you kind of defined it a little bit broadly, so let me try to see if you can get a more defined answer of what do you see as effective leadership?
Effective leadership is you have to understand your brothers. You gotta I tell the incoming worshipful masters all the time, know your audience.
Mm-hmm.
If you know your audience, then you could be an effective leader, a more effective leader. Knowing your audience knows that to Mark, I have to talk a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to Kevin, I have to talk a certain way. To Daquan, I have to talk to a certain way. Your approach, knowing your brother, helps you how to navigate and understand that your role is not to be nice all the time, but to be fair.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to be nice all the time, but you have to be fair. At the same time, there's everybody needs something.
Mm-hmm.
One day a brother may need $5. Another day a brother may just need a call. How you doing? A prayer. So we have to know who comes into our world. Once that room is tiled, we have to know who's coming in and whether they're coming in with their coat on or they're going to hang their coat outside. That requires some skill, but if you know your brothers, you can look me in the eye and say, Sandino, you're having a bad day today. What's going on? You know, and
So
that's the level of detail that sometimes is missing because we assume that we really have power. We don't have power. I had this discussion with somebody a couple of days ago. We really don't have power. We have influence, but we really don't have power over brothers.
yeah,
True.
that's a big difference between power and influence, and that's a good way to word it. So in general, as far as getting to know your brothers, can't really, I ain't gonna say it can be done, but it should be done earlier in your career before you get to the principal officer stations. Like I guess as you know, early like stewards would be the perfect time to do it when you're serving them and things like that. Is the best time to get to know them. And if you go through all the stations, by the time you get a principal officer, you should know your brothers very well. So that would make your year in the East as smooth as possible, as far at least with your
I,
brothers.
so, as a strategy, while we tell the incoming worshipful master or the junior warden that's stepping in for the first time
Mm-hmm.
that they should, through instruction and participating as a dean, you also learn your brothers. The
Mm-hmm.
learning really starts at the petition stage.
Mm-hmm.
It starts with meet and greets. Before you even give them the letter, say, report to us in 30 days, you should have meet and greets. Know these petitioners before they alarm the door. And then in every stage of whether it's entered apprentice, fellow craft, or master mason, there's a learning that has to take place and a bond that has to take place, not just with the cable toes, but with the deeds of instruction. So I was a pretty good dean of instruction. So I learned my brothers early. When I was a warden and a deacon, I already was learning who these brothers were. So by the time they were master mason, I more or less knew who their family was, etc. But I think those are the pieces that are hard and the elements that are missing. Because
Mm-hmm.
if we call ourselves brothers, right, then there has to be it has to be more than just a monthly meeting, a study class, a ritual, and a dictionary. It has to be more than that. It can't just be that.
Mm-hmm. And I'm curious about, like, again, I think you may have touched on this a little bit, but the more than that piece. Because one of the things that I've struggled with the most, even in my time in the East, was just balancing that time between the craft, work, other professional endeavors, family and friends, like the whole spectrum, my own personal health. And I'm the type of guy that likes to prioritize making sure that my health is A1. And so I'm always curious about how I know that it's super important that we know our brothers and that we understand who they are, that we are available when they need us. And at the same time, it seems like as worshipful masters, as all three of us know here, the phone never stops ringing. There's always a text message. Something is always happening. And so I'm just very curious about how you use that 24-inch gauge and like specifically any tips you can share, even with me right now in terms of like how you manage the time. Because as a grant secretary, I bet you probably get 3 times as many messages and emails in the course of a week than you got as worshipful master probably. So like how do you even stay connected? Like how do you stay connected and prioritize the brothers during that time when you have so many other things pulling at you?
So right now I got 3 emails and 2 calls. because we know we're getting closer to a session. So the bylaws, well, Mark will get the emails soon. The bylaws changes and all that other stuff. So I have I'm blessed. My wife and my family supports me. I do spend a lot of time outside the home, but when I'm home, I'm home. And I think that you have to separate, sometimes create some barriers. When I was Worshipful Master, I slept with my phone. I left it on. Now I sleep with my phone, but I turn off the ringer. And when my first year as secretary, it was hard, so I kept my phone on. But as people learn to call me at 7 in the morning versus 7 o'clock at night,
so that's the time, 7 in the morning now?
7 in the morning.
So now I
7 to
know.
9.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate
7
that.
to 9.
It's on the
Now,
record.
Now I know.
I'm usually driving, taking my son to the city. And again, the 24-inch gauge is the most valuable tool that we got, because time does not forgive. You don't get time back. So if you're going to spend time in the lodge, that means it's taken away from somewhere else. Like, give you an example. We spend more time at work with our co-workers than typically your family. By the time you get home from work, you eat, you have dinner, your kids go to sleep, you go to bed, you wake up. Then you got the rest of the 8 hours. What you do with the rest of the 8 hours, we are told to spend it doing specific things, but that's really the 8 hours that you're working with, stretching it out. I'm not the only one that has to multitask, but I have a flexible job. My hours are flexible. I could come in at 7, work 2, 3, come in at 9, work to 5. As long as I put in my 7 hours of work, I should be okay. But for the most part, is picking and choosing what's important at the moment and making sure that one doesn't overtake the other. We've been to far too many funerals that when the family sees us, they look at us like, oh, these are the guys that my father spent time with. They look at us, they don't know who we are. And it's almost sad because they gave us so much time, and not everybody in their family may or may not understand that this was important.
Yeah.
And we weren't really taking time from them.
Yeah.
They were developing and growing with us. But how to ensure that growth happens in both arenas, in the lodge and at home, so that one doesn't take on the other. It's very hard. I've been in funerals where the family looks at us like, who are you guys? And then I'm in funerals where they see us, they hug us, they cry. It's almost hit or miss, but it has to have some intention. Has to be some intention, and family has to be supportive. Let's be honest. Some families, we know because they're in our lodges, right? Some of our brothers and their wives, they don't really like us too much for whatever reason. They may not want to be around us, or they don't want to be an Order Visa Star or those pieces. We got to look at it because the Order Visa Star was created for our mothers, wives,
sisters,
daughters,
sisters.
It was created for that, but that element is missing. So we got to look into that and figure out what's not happening to make sure that our families can be together, Masonically speaking.
Yeah, that's a blessing to be able to have that level of support and understanding. I'm curious now.
I get heat sometimes because I do a lot of masonry.
Yes, comes with the territory. It's always trade-offs to every decision that we make, for sure. Now I'm curious. Let's just transition a little bit. Now that you are a past master of your lodge, the secretary of your lodge, your actual current lodge, the grand secretary of the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge, New York. I'm curious about how you interact with your current worshipful masters and worshipful masters that have come behind you. And so if you could share anything about how your leadership has shifted now that you are a past master in your lodge, any tips or any suggestions or just any stories to share about how you have interacted with your current worshipful master as well as the worshipful master that came after you, so that they don't feel sort of threatened by your status and those sort of things. They see you as a supporter versus somebody as an adversary in that space.
So the first thing is actions, right? When I'm in my lodge room, in a entire lodge, I wear my past master's apron. I don't wear the secretary's apron or the grand secretary's. I wear the past master's apron. If I have something to say to the worshipful master, I never say it in open lodge. I never say it the same day. I wait a few days and then I call him and discuss it. I'm looked upon as an asset. Every worshipful master I've had since I've been Grand Secretary always assume that Adelphic Union will get everything first, and we actually don't. We don't get the dues card first.
That's what I was thinking. That's what I know. We get our dues card first.
We don't get anything first, but the assumption is that, oh, I got the Grand Secretary in my lodge, and so we're gonna get everything first. That's not the case. So I have to manage those expectations. But the most important thing is that I want to be looked at as an ally and a supporter. One of the things that we do in Adelphic Union that is very unique is that every elected Grand Lodge officer in my lodge still attends lodge meetings. And I have to emphasize that. No criticism to anybody else, but we feel that it's important to cultivate what we've to keep cultivating what we have built in Adelphic Union, and at the same time seek the path of our dreams. All of us have dreams and aspirations. We could do both. There's a way to do both. And I don't mean that I'm going to be in every study class or at every event or in every meeting, be there on time, because I'm not. But we have to be careful as we look to lead. You have to be careful that what we built doesn't crumble. Because the same energy could do both things. We have to be very careful. So we make every effort to be everywhere we need to be to make sure that our lodge continues to grow and be what we envision it to be. An example. We don't want to be the best. We want to be a good example. We want to share ideas so that people can learn and try new things. Have encouraged people to think out the box. You can't expect a different outcome if we're doing the same thing. So we gotta be able to look and explore. And if it doesn't work, try something else. But doing the same thing over and over again hasn't yielded much in some situations.
Very true. I know and you just alluded to it. I mean, you can't forget the foundation because we're nothing without our lodge. We're Master Masons before anything else. So it's like you said, it's very important for us as past masters to continue to contribute to our lodges in any way we can. Of course, my current worshipful master always says, we paid our pound of flesh already as being worshipful master. So we might not be able to make every event, but we make as much as we can. We check in and support the lodges as best as we can. And that's very important. Even I know, Sandino, you know this as third degree. That's the first thing they tell you. Go back to your lodges, go back to your consistories, because we're nothing without those foundational points. And as far as with that also comes people to guide you through, different stages and things like that. So during your time in the East, or just in general, who are some of the mentors that you had as a worshipful master or just in general in the craft?
So I had multiple mentors for different years. Of course, our past master Brooks was an inspiration, who's really the first one to kind of pivot the lodge into rethinking itself. Past Master Francis, my sponsor, although we argue and disagree a lot, but he's still the person that brought me into this organization. And if I need sound advice, that's who I'm going to lean with. And of course, I'm among the greats, right? You got Gene Allen on a good day. He could cure, he could cure stuff. Always inspiring. Then you have Darryl White, soft spoken, but always focused on what needs to happen. And then, of course, Kevin, the librarian, the historian. If I need to put things in historical perspective, I have him. And then Daquan, the guy that I can't keep up with, but that keeps me and keeps the blood in my veins moving. Just watching him move around gives me inspiration that we're still not old. We're not young, but we're still not old. We can still move around. Outside the lodge, I had a few. I had Candido. I I had some brothers from Samson. At different points of my Masonic career, I had different people, but what helped me tremendously, and I know you've seen pictures out there, but you probably don't know what you're seeing. My class of 2014 and 15, I think, are the best.
Yeah,
The
I
most
always heard that.
the most united worshipful masters, past matrons, and patrons that serve in those 2 years are amazing. Everywhere we go, we take a picture. Everywhere we go, we're all in leadership positions at different houses and at the ground level, etc. We're all still contributing to our district and our lodges and chapters. It was an amazing group of individuals. Some of them are even serving again this year, by the way.
Yeah,
But
one
for
of
the
them
most
is.
part, something that I neglected to say, and thank you for reminding me that everything just didn't happen from within. I had the support of those individuals. We shared notes, we shared trestle boards, we shared calendars, and we made sure that we didn't bump into each other or step on each other's toes. Which is not that it's impossible, but I think it was unique from 2015 to 2016 to have that kind of camaraderie. Shoot, when I went to Buffalo, you saw me take pictures. We were a tight group. When you saw me in Buffalo, Wagstaff, we had the current worshipful master, the past master at the door, and Alexis. We all served together in the East, and we still have that bond of love.
Yeah.
You would think that we live so far apart that the bond, no, it's the bond that we created just by traveling and fellowshipping.
Absolutely. And I think that's what I love that point that you just made there, because I know this is about sort of understanding your time in the East, but one point just to make known is I think personally one of the biggest opportunities is that bond between downstate New York and Western New York. I think that's something that we got to work on, getting tighter, stronger, just on a more global sense, in order for us to really bridge that gap that we may be having, maybe experiencing there. So I'm glad to hear that you've maintained that. And I see it. It's not that you just giving me lip service right now. I actually have seen it. So I hope that other brothers and sisters will be able to see that, just continue to bridge that gap. Because I know there's two different cultures. You know, the downstate culture is one thing, upstate culture is another thing, or West New York culture is another thing. But we're all one family, one jurisdiction. And so being able to continue to keep those relationships strong and taking the time to get to know your brothers and sisters across the jurisdiction, I think it's going to be huge for us as we try to sustain this our craft in this state going forward. So thank you for what you do to keep that relationship tight across the throughway. I would love to, since you did mention that one of your classmates is serving again in the East in 2014, 10 years later, 2024, 10 years later. The question that we like to ask all of our guests on the show is, again, we don't expect you to do this because I believe that, you know, there's other things that you may be considering. However, if you were hypothetically were to go back into the East at Adelphic Union, knowing what you know now about what has worked for you in the past, what you see are the current needs of your lodge and of the craft, if you were to go back and be Worshipful Master, not Right Worshipful, not District Deputy, but as Worshipful Master of Adelphic Union 14, what would you focus on? What would be your priorities for that year?
So I'm gonna stick to the topic of leadership, right? I don't think people wake up and say, I want to serve again. I don't think if I said that, I would be misleading. I think that leadership requires that we train and cultivate. I'm of no use of leading today because our membership is different. I could have served 3 years. My lodge wanted me to serve 2 years. But I said, no, it's time for the next guy. He's ready. So I think my answer to you is that if we do what's right by our lodge, we shouldn't have to serve again.
Yeah. Well, hypothetically, play with me. Let's just go along with the situation right now. If Sandino Sanchez was Worshipful Master for the year 2025, let's say that 2025, on your trestle board, what would be your number one or top two focus areas? It's gonna help somebody. It's gonna help somebody that's listening.
Right. So my top two focuses would be to create more outings as silly as this sounds, I think in the uh, we're limited, right? So we have the basement in the Grand East, our bar.
Mm.
I think that what I will do differently is go out more with the lodge. Maybe the restaurant, maybe the movies, bowling. Do that. Focus on the fellowship part of it. Cultivate that. I would focus on the symbolism behind the stuff that we do, the esoterics, because I am really. People say that people say that there are five types of masons, right? Esoteric, historians, legislators, ritualists, and folks that understand the business. So I am an esoteric mason. I do all the other stuff too, but that's what. So I would focus on the hidden meanings between
Mm.
below what we're trying to do, because I think that we have a young group of young brothers that's what they want,
Mm.
and sometimes we have to meet brothers where they at. The surface of what we do is one thing, but the symbolism of what we do is another, and we don't do enough to teach that part. The other thing I will do is not go back to basics, but there's always room to learn more about the Constitution, the bylaws. We haven't done that in a while. Do the focus on the Constitution and bylaws so that we can learn the legislative arm of our organizations, and also and spend more time with our widows. Uh,
Mm.
you know,
Definitely.
we don't. The first district in general, we all do a little bit individually, but I mean, as a whole, we
Mm.
don't do enough for our widows. And I would cultivate, and our sick and distress. We used to back in the days. We would drive and take them meals on a regular basis. Not
Mm.
do it once a year, not do it twice a year, not take them a meal on Thanksgiving or New Year's. Those are easy or
Mm.
easier.
Mm.
Try to figure out a way that if we know two brothers are homesick, that there's a meal program that we could go and take them regular meals of soup or get their medicine on a regular basis. I will focus on that area
Mm.
more than before, because we already have a good. It was hard to answer your question because we already do
Yeah.
the the ritual piece. We already do the light piece, but these are elements that we do,
Yeah.
but we could do some more if we had to.
Right. Right. Those three pillars that you've already mentioned, the light, the business, and the fellowship. It seems like you would still do those things just at a
Yeah,
different.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Just
it's just a
changing
look
up
a little
our.
different. Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely. I see. Just to get back to your part of your class of 2014, 2015, I remember a few years back, I don't know if I was worse that year or when I was senior warden, Janelle, who went back into the seat now. That's one. She's a
Yes,
worthy nation and went back into the seat
that's what
now.
I
She's
was
class of
mentioning.
2015. She was bragging about y'all 2015 class, and it kind of made an impression on me, definitely for our class 2022 and 2023 to stay close as much as we can and watch each other and support each other throughout the years because we still have a long journey in Freemasonry. So yes, y'all, unknowns to maybe you and to some of y'all, you have been an inspiration to other classes, and
Thank you.
I hope it continues to be that way. um we definitely want to thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for the light that you have given us. Remind us about the three points that the U always stress as far as business, fellowship, and light. Reminding us how important it is for us to get to know our brothers, taking care of our widows. And that's another point I wanted to get to as far as the third district does a good job with that as far as doing the widows breakfasts every year. Definitely
Yes,
want to mention that. And big up to the third district for doing that. And all of
yes,
us need to continue to definitely don't forget our widows. Even like I said, it's not even just in the blue house because in the other houses, there are widows too. And it's still our responsibility to take care of them like we did, or your consistory did at the ceremony of remembrance.
yes,
We brought a family of a brother that just passed away and recognized the family and talked about the dedication and he gave to the craft. And that was a beautiful thing. So we definitely want to thank you for that. Do you have any final comments that you want to?
The only, I just, my mind went back to the beginning for a second.
Yep.
So one thing that I neglected to mention is that one of the advices that I give my incoming worshipful master is that to work with the chapter.
Mm.
There's magic that happens, and I know every lodge doesn't have a chapter, but there's a special magic that happens when the worshipful master, the worthy matron, and worthy patron work together. It's magic that happens because when you both succeed, when one succeeds, the other succeeds.
Mm-hmm. And I got a couple couple questions, if you don't mind. The one question that I really wanted to understand, that I talked about this in the beginning, the fact that you served on 3 different levels. I'm just curious about what, if anything, have you noticed about either your leadership style or the needs as a leader in those 3 different. We've dove pretty deep into the lodge side, being district deputy grand master, being the district president, and then being at the grand lodge level. Have you noticed anything shift in your leadership? I know you very consistent, brother, show up pretty consistent across the board. But also I'm just curious about, have you had to adjust, flex, grow in new and different spaces?
Yeah, I have a different leadership style for different positions.
So yes, so there's been times that I have put my foot down. I don't think either of you have seen that side of me, but there's times where you have to put your foot down because right is right and wrong is wrong. There's times that I've gotten in trouble for voicing an opinion that I felt was right. I think that we should all strive to do what's right, and sometimes what's right is not popular. And as a past district president, I didn't really have those challenges because all we did was a lot of committee work and the feedings that we do. As Grand Secretary, there's times that I've had to say no. I'm not going to say who I've said no to, but there's times that I've had to say no. Or can we do it this way? And there's been times when I've been told, yo, you need to do this. So as a leader, you have to know to follow. And as a follower, you have to know when to lead. And I think that that's the dynamic. Our organization needs more advisors than we think. We need more mentors than we think. We need a lot of the brothers with all the information. We have to make sure that they're in, like this platform. We have to get all that knowledge somewhere that we can have access to, because the information is not transferring from my generation, and I'm only 55, to the younger generation. We have to do more to make sure that those moments where we bump each other, they're painless.
Okay.
We can't. Sometimes the ritual becomes a weapon. Sometimes the knowledge could be a tool. So we got to figure out, because a hammer, you can build with a hammer, and you could also
destroy with a hammer.
We got to make sure that everything we do translates into building versus punishing, building versus destroying, because this new generation of brothers are different. What worked for me, it's not going to work for the new brothers. So it's not about discipline or zeal or commitment. We have to change with the membership that we have. Not that we have to change what we do or be as an organization, but we have to understand that people learn in a different way, and we have to adjust so that we're able to have impact on what we're trying to impart.
Great. Appreciate that. So definitely, being able to now being at the Grand Secretary space and where you are, being able to pivot to that followership and understanding, like, this is what I need to do in order to meet the needs of the broader, but then also understanding where you need to show up as a leader. So I much appreciate that, for sure. Excellent. Pastor Master Alexander, any last questions there?
Yeah, maybe one, because we just they know this would be pretty quick and we ain't even touch on it. Not on a more of a lighter note. What are some of your proudest moments as a worshipful master, or just as a Mason in general? We can end on a good note.
My proudest moments were my proudest moments were when we we every year we kind of have a charity, and we had a brother that had passed away from what started as prostate cancer, but it metastasized into breast cancer. So we did a breast cancer awareness for men, and we did of course, the prostate screening. We did that. Those were my proudest moments because those were, as men of color, going to the doctor isn't something that's appealing to us. The other accomplishments I think I had were when the district got together and we traveled together. We did it a couple of times to the class of 2014 and 15. I think it was the camaraderie that we had, I think, were part of the proud moments that I have. And to be honest, that first time, and I'm gonna take it, that first picture in 2014 in Kevin's house in front of his brownstone.
Yeah. Barbecue.
That barbecue is
Yeah.
the most beautiful picture in my Masonic career. So
Mm-hmm.
you notice that year there's two pictures. One picture with my brothers, and then another picture with my class. So those are two of the most proudest moments because it kind of everybody blended together and it felt good. I have other accomplishments about leadership, and we did a breakpoint even analysis. We adjusted our dues. We looked at our bylaws. It took a couple of years later, but we managed to get the Quran on the altar and the Torah on the altar. We wanted to. Those are also proud moments, but those moments of fellowship, I think, are the ones that I want to highlight the most.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, much appreciated, Right Worshipful Sanchez. If there's any way that brothers and sisters can get in contact with you, is there an email they should be reaching out to? Is there a
everybody has my number?
You got a website? you got a website or anything?
Listen,
any place
he don't want people calling him from Alaska now, I think.
Man, listen,
come on, Mark. I'm trying to get in.
My email is simple, Sandino Sanchez at Hotmail, and everybody has my number. Awesome. I'm sure if somebody wants me, don't call Mark or you, and they'll get me.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, it's been a pleasure. I definitely learned a little bit more about you. I appreciate you sharing your stories about your leadership journey. It was real heartfelt, and I certainly learned about your journey. So much appreciation for all that you do, not only for your lodge and for your district, but also for the craft as a whole. So thank you.
Thank you.
That's it for episode number 2, everybody, episode number 3, excuse me. Number 3 of Masterful Conversations. For those on YouTube, like, subscribe, do all the YouTube things that you do. Share this with as many people as possible. And if you have any feedback, you can reach us at masterfulconversations@gmail.com. And with that, stay tuned for the next episode. Peace and be well.
Thank you.